Oké. Beste IBT-docenten uit Nederland, politietrainers en first responder trainers. Vandaag een gesprek met Brian Willis. Een van de meest, wat mij betreft, gewaardeerde en belezen politie-educators in Amerika. Met een geweldige site, Excellence Training Academy, met heel veel podcasten, met heel veel audio-opnames, een jarenlange ervaring. Nou, je kunt zijn blog lezen. En in deze videoblog gaan we nog wat dieper in op de stukjes, op de onderwerpen die Brian in zijn blog heeft geschreven. Ik weet zeker dat je er heel veel van kunt leren. So Brian, did it sound like German or like Swedish or Danish?
Sounded Dutch to me.
Dutch, okay, that's great. Well, you wrote a blog for me, and then we talked. It's nice to go to some points out the blog, the written piece. Thank you very much again. And but before we go into the topics, I would like to inspire my colleagues with some other questions. And the first question is, and I know it's very hard for you to do as a host of my own podcast and so on, but from which 3 podcast episodes of your own podcast, Excellence Training Academy, have you learned the most in the last years?
In the last few years, and again, it's very difficult because I've done now well over 420 interviews. A lot of the learning for me takes place in the preparation, as you know. But if I was to boil it down to 3, I guess the first one would be a cluster of interviews. So Paul Taylor, who is a former police officer in Colorado, is a professor at the University of Colorado in Denver and has done a lot of research specific to the law enforcement profession. I've done 6 or 7 interviews over the years with Paul. In the last few years, probably the ones that have had the most impact are when we talked about human error. So in episode 272, we talked about the error is human, understanding and investigating human error. And that for me was very helpful to understand this whole concept of human error and how we investigate human error. And as a result, I now talk about that information in the Excellence in Training courses and in the Dare to Be Great leadership workshops that I teach, because we need to think differently about human error rather than, because we have this bad habit of blaming. And Sidney Decker, one of the experts in the world on human error, says that you can blame or you can learn, but you can't do both. We historically have a culture of blaming the officer. And as a result, there's little or no learning that takes place. What we need to do is look at what is there in this that there might be in the systems, the training or lack of training or the preparation for this officer. What piece of this do we as an organization, do we as trainers own? Right. And so I did the interview with Paul about human error, and then the 2 follow-up ones after that were about creating decision-making, or how do we build better decision makers, and how do we build resilience for error into our tactics and into our training.